Hello, and welcome to another segment of Conversations in the Nick of Time. I am your host, Nikki Roach, and as always, we are delighted to have you joining us here on this platform. This is the destination for your mentoring moments with a global influence. And with that, we invite all of these phenomenal guests. Some of them I have direct access to, while others I'm introduced to, and then I turn around and introduce them to you. All over the world, they are saying yes to the invitation to come and share their journey, their lived experiences, whether it was excellence, accidents, or some type of manner in which they had to learn how to exercise or advocate for equity. And so, with that, we bring them on, they share, they give their insight, and guess what? We get to walk away with some tools that we can apply and use in a multiple ways. And I'm just excited that each of them say yes. And speaking of saying yes, I want to give a shout out, a special shout out to those who are supporting and partnering with this platform, TV Network, ALA Publications, All in Music and Media, KSTL Jubilee 690 AM, Mosaic Ceiling and Sparkman Publications. You know that I have mad love for each of you for the work that you do and the support that you give. And those of you who are on that waiting list to do the same, we got you. More stuff coming ahead for opportunities to support and champion for us on this platform. Well, I am excited about my guest. I have had the chance to get to know her virtually, but also face to face. And I am just beyond impressed by the work that she has done, and just fascinated in an honor to be a student in some capacity of the work from the distance. And with that, I want to introduce to some of you and present to others Miss Kayla Lebovits. And I am so excited. She comes to us by way of New York. And I had, yes, a chance to actually go. But just a little bit about Kayla, a workforce reformist, learning enthusiast, and mother. Kayla is, she says, hell bent on revolutionizing the employee experience and driving positive company transformation. By creating Bundle, which is her company that you'll learn more about, an employee experience company, she strives to help companies find a holistic approach to employee well-being, engagement, and development. She has had the opportunity of working in Wall Street, in the financial business. She has bachelor's degree in diplomatic history and a minor in education from the University of Pennsylvania. She has her MBA from Harvard, so she finished there. And then she realized that there was some other things that she wanted to get into when it comes to that employee experience. And her passion for people is evidenced by her serving as a member of Next for Autism's Next Gen board, which helps individuals to live fulfilled lives. And Kayla is absolutely just fearless when it comes to making these connections across the world. And you will learn more about that. And I'm telling you, you just don't want to miss this information that she's going to have for today. Miss Kayla, how are you?
I am good, and I'm so happy to be here, and it's nice to see you again. And I'm just excited about all the things we're going to talk about because I think we're both very passionate about the topic. So I'm excited for our conversation.
Yes. Again, first, let me just say thank you. I know that you're the boss at Bundle. And being the boss, but you're also the boss at home. And there are just a number of things that you have been juggling. And then also we will get around to the people behind the book that was celebrated and launched a few months ago. Absolutely amazing experience. How is it that you fulfilling all these different roles? We're just going to jump right in. How is it that you're managing all of this and because you're leading, not just a part of it?
Yeah, I'm still figuring that out. I think that it goes in waves. I think I'm not a real believer in balance, to be honest with you. I think you're constantly giving maybe a bit more to one thing versus the other at different points in your life. And I think sometimes you're buckling down and really focused on work. Sometimes you're focused on yourself. Sometimes you're focused on your family, and it all kind of evens out over time. But I don't think anything is truly ever in balance. So even when it came to putting the book together, people ask me, how did you have time to write a book over the past couple of years with building your company? I also had 2 children in the past 3 years. And the truth is, I didn't really have much of a social life. It was COVID. I was buckled down, and I was really passionate about, and I needed like something to work on outside of my work. And so I think, again, it's just a constant battle to manage everything. And I think it's important to have people in your life that can kind of pull you out when you're a little too deep in and say, hey, like you need to take a break, you need to do other things. So I think having that support system is very important. And also just recognizing, again, that things go in waves, and there'll be time when your family needs you more, there'll be time when your work needs you more, there'll be time when you need you more. And I think it's just figuring that out and being okay with sometimes the imbalance that comes with just like the reality of life. So that's how I've tried to manage it over the past few years.
And everything is new. Like those things that you've mentioned are new,
Yes.
like infancy state, in if I could use that language.
Yeah.
How is it that you've navigated baby on the hip, baby in the womb, baby that you've birthed, meaning the business, yes, writing a book, travel, and you are not just a solopreneur, you have a full team that you're
Yeah.
bringing in to embrace this vision that you had. What does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
It's complete chaos, but I think that I personally thrive in chaos, and I think the team that I have surrounded myself with at work have a good balance of that. They're able to sometimes take the chaos and dissect it and make it logic and have like processes and structure. So I think that I've really tried to surround myself with people that can complement me. I don't want We have a saying at our company, like we don't want to be skinny mirrors. We want to tell each other when things are going well, when things are not going well, just be honest and direct with each other. And I think by having that transparency and directness, we're able to build things together and build them well. But it's chaotic. I think, even when you put structures and processes into place, you're constantly tweaking them and learning as you go. So definitely new to everything, new to building a business, new to motherhood, new to balancing competing priorities. And I think it just takes time and like learning and trial and error and figuring it out. I've failed a million times. I've failed myself, my kids, my job. And I think you just have to keep picking yourself up, and it's all about like grit and being able to just say, I'm just going to wake up and do it all over again and try to do just a little bit better today. And I think it also helps to set boundaries. And I've learned that really, especially the past year, where there's time where I'm just completely offline and focused on my family and being present. And then during the workday, I'm completely focused on work. And so I think, again, it's just finding those different guardrails you need to stay in line and make sure you can give your 100% to whatever it is that you're focused on. So I think honestly, it's just like managing through chaos is how I think about it, and surrounding yourself by people that are like that really compliment you and know your weaknesses and know when you're getting too wrapped up in things and know when to pull you in and out. And so I think, again, surrounding yourself with people like that really makes all the difference. I could not do what I do alone. I have a support team personally, and I have a support team professionally.
Oh,
Because again, you can't
really?
do all alone for sure. Oh yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned grit,
Yes.
boundaries, surrounding, and support
Yeah.
systems.
Yes.
Unpack grit for me. How do you define that and walk that out?
There are things every day that knock you down. There are, especially in entrepreneurship, the highs are so high and the lows are so low, and it's very easy to be successful with the highs, right? Something great happens, you celebrate it, you take it, you try to milk it for all it is. But I think the lows are what differentiate people. If you can wake up the next morning and just have a positive attitude and say, I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to keep going, that's what I think makes a successful entrepreneur. it is so hard to keep restarting and restarting. And I know that in Bundle's history, we have restarted and pivoted so many times, and it is so exhausting mentally and physically and emotionally. And I think often people give up, but I think grit is just like constant persistence, and constant hustle, and realizing that it never ends. Even when the biggest high happens, there's so much work to be done with everything else. So you need to celebrate the highs, but you need to like keep pushing forward and keep innovating. And if you get, if you just stop and enjoy for a minute, there's going to be someone else that runs past you. So I think grit is really, especially during the lows, just continuing to move forward, having a positive attitude and having confidence that you can do it. So easy to fall into your own misery and just exaggerate the lows in a way, but I think it's really those who can pick themselves up every single day and say, I'm going to do this. Today's going to be a little better than yesterday. I'm going to push forward. I think it not only helps your own mental fitness develop, but also the people, your employees and your team around you. The positivity is contagious. And if you're going to be negative and let things bring you down, it's just a death spiral, and you'll just keep going lower and lower. So I really think grit is every day picking yourself up and just trying to move a little faster, do things a little better than yesterday, and realizing that you're just learning every day. You're never going to do anything perfect. You could overanalyze every call you have, every presentation you do, but at a certain point, just got to be good enough, and then you keep going along and making it better along the way. So I think grit is just essential to moving forward every day and moving in the right direction.
I love the fact that you bring up this concept of allowing something to be good enough. Yeah. And I'm thinking that may be an accident that many of us continue to find ourselves crashing into, because we're always chasing not excellence, but this idea of perfection, but like whose idea? And then if it's something that you've been given a vision to do and you've positioned yourself to give of that, most times those who are the recipients of the service or product, they don't know that it's not hitting the mark, but we're stressing out, like, yeah, it's like having a meltdown on the inside, right? And so I think there is much to be learned and explored when we talk about things being good enough.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think growing up, I put a lot of pressure on myself. I was a complete perfectionist, to the point where my parents put no pressure on me academically because I put so much pressure on myself. And I think as I've gotten older, I've realized this it's really this good enough that actually like helps me on a day-to-day basis. Nothing's ever perfect. And in fact, like if it's perfect, you're probably not doing something right. I think the good enough and just is the way you get by, right? If you're constantly focused on perfectionism, whether it's in work or in your personal life, are you ever going to be happy? I don't think so, because there's always something more you could be doing and always something you can make better. I think you have to get comfortable with the good enough, because sometimes there's just not enough time, and it's for your own like level of happiness, where I did my best. It's good enough. I'm going to keep iterating on it, and it's going to get me the next step. I think perfectionism is kind of a dangerous path to go down, because I think it will lead to a lot of dissatisfaction in yourself that's not really warranted. So I've very much gotten by the past few years with, I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing good enough. And I think it truly is good enough to get you the next step.
And that's a daily thing, because at the end of the day, and you have that pause for reflection, and you contemplate like, what happened today? What went well today? Right. What could I have showed up for a little better?
Yes.
Today. But also, I'm liking this. What was good enough today? So I can go to sleep, right?
Exactly. That's exactly it. Because you look back at your day and there's so many things that could have went better. So it's just like, what went well enough? What were like the highs? What were the lows? And what's going to be better tomorrow? I think that's all you can ask for. I think otherwise you're just constantly you're never going to be happy with anything, because let's face it, we're all messing up every day. We're all failing every day. We're all not present enough. We're not focused enough. So you just gotta, it's like roses and thorns, right? There's roses of every day, there's
Yes.
thorns of every day, and that's how you wake up every day and continue to do what you're doing.
Yeah, and there is no day, going back to that grace and it being good enough. There's no day, not one, while we're breathing anyway, that could have been that you can't say something could have gone better.
Yeah. I completely agree. And I think I try to teach like we have a lot of very young employees at Bundle on the younger side. Like they're just starting out their careers and they're very much, I see myself in them, which is trying to be perfectionists. And we try to teach them it's good enough. Like you're gonna go back in a month or in a quarter and tweak it again. And that's, I think, again, it's something that we're taught like in school that you want
Oh
to be
yeah.
perfect, an A+ student, all this, but that doesn't really like, there's no such thing as like an A+ in the real world and like life, right? So I think it's almost this weird thing we learn when we're younger, like with grades and all this. Like you don't get graded in life and in work, right? It's just different. Everything builds on itself. So it's not like, in work you have a project and you're done for the year, right? Everything builds upon itself. And I think we're just used to doing things one way when we're in school and we're younger, and it doesn't necessarily translate into real life.
Right. And it's interesting that you mentioned that because we go through trying to be the best of and I remember when I started in my career and I began to be on like hiring committees
Yeah.
and or hiring manager in a couple roles. And what's funny listening to you say this, one thing we would say if it was just one person or a committee, you don't want the person who had the straight A's because that means they didn't have a social life. So you want to find somebody in the middle, So it's like either you can't win either way. So I
Yes,
hear
I
you.
agree.
Show up, be present, do your best, right?
And you want someone you want to hang out with at the end of the day. And if they were busy just studying all day, are they fun to hang out with? I agree. You need like a balance of both.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Definitely.
mentioned boundaries, that being one of the benefits that you have reaped from. Um, but you also mentioned support systems, professional and personal. Not heard that. Walk
Yes.
us through that.
Yeah, so I think in terms of boundaries, I think I've set boundaries for myself. It's so easy to be online all the time, right? Like on your phone, you have we have
But you're
Microsoft.
expected to. You're the boss.
Yes, but I think that if you are, I think it sets a really bad precedent for people about like personal lives, right? So like I am pretty much unavailable unless you call me, which people don't tend to call unless it's an emergency before a certain time in the morning and then a certain hour and a half at night when I'm with my children and I put them to bed. And I think people still message me, but there's this expectation like she's not going to respond and it's because she's with her family. And I think it sets a really good precedent for people. You need that space. First of all, I need like a break for my eyes from my phone, but more than that, I need a break like mentally. So I've set boundaries like that. Obviously there are times that I'm still checking my phone and there's something big going on and I'm not present, but I still try to set these boundaries. Like I might not respond to you for an hour and a half, and that's okay. And if it's that important, then call me. And usually no one's calling you because it really isn't that important. Things can wait. So I think it's super important to set those boundaries, whether you have kids or not. Everyone has a personal life. Everyone has, maybe they want to work out for 30 minutes in the morning and not have to look at their phone. So I think it's setting boundaries no matter what phase of life you're in. And then I think support systems, like even at work, two of my two partners on my leadership team are very good about being like, you're off today. Why are you messaging me? Why are you online? Like everything is fine. And I think it's like kind of snaps you back into reality. I'm off today. Like, why am I checking in? Again, if there's a really big problem, someone's going to call me. I think it's having those people kind of call you out and say, you need a break because you're going to be better for the company and you'll be better for yourself if you take that mental break for the day, if you actually take that time off. And then it's the same in my personal life, like, my husband calling me out on things I said I was going to do. And then I'm checking my email and I'm not paying attention to the
It's like,
conversation.
hey.
Yeah. It's like you need that. You need people to kind of call you out on your stuff so I don't want to curse on this. So if you need people to call you out on your stuff and kind of bring you out. And I think if you don't have those people in your lives, you can quickly just go to like a downward spiral where you're constantly like on and checking your phone and your computer and just thinking about work and thinking about whatever it is that you're not supposed to be thinking about. So I think you need those support systems to kind of like bring you out and be like, there's you need a life. Like there's other things that are important besides your professional life. And you need to remember that on a daily basis, because at the end of the day, your family and the people that you love and your friends, like they'll be there for the long run, and jobs and things come and go, and, clients come and go and all that stuff. So I think it's important to just keep it in perspective, that it's still just a job and your family is your family. And I think that's really important and very easy to lose sight of on a daily basis.
Right. And so I was just taking a moment to look up one thing that we talk about. You're starting to hear this bubble up more and more in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space and belonging space. Not so much in corporate, but I'm starting to hear it. Mm-hmm. And it's called psychological safety.
Yeah.
And the more you speak, I'm like, you have had to be very intentional. If you're not only your personal support system, but your professional support system, and your team is willing to speak up and correct, but also make suggestions, recommendations to tell you, even as the boss, what are you doing? Why are you calling? We laugh at that, but that takes a lot of nerve, especially these days.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, like, we're wanting to do our best. We're wanting to put our best foot forward. We're wanting to to shine. You hired us. We want to come and do our best. And oftentimes, well, as you know, we're coming out of, and you've come out of, this whole rat race where you don't want to be the first to leave the office. You want to be the one who is sending the last email, around 10 p.m. Like, oh, I've been at it all day. And we wore crowns and badges for that. But now, since COVID, things have shifted, but it's still this unnerving anxiety that still underlies to where it's like, can I really take a remote day? Or can I really say that I'll get to that tomorrow? So the psychological safety for those who are being introduced to this is defined as the belief that you won't be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or even mistakes. So basically, you get a chance. We say, bring your authentic self, bring your whole self to the workplace. When many of us, especially those with experience, I would say really those of us with experience, are very hesitant to lean into this whole idea of psychological safety, because it is often punitive, or you're up for that promotion, and it's like, oh, I remember when you spoke out of term, or you were too aggressive. So you have all of those different things, but the psychological safety that you've put in place, is there something that you can pinpoint that has caused you to be so intentional?
Yeah. It's so interesting you say that. I think that I'm a very honest and direct person. And so I've surrounded myself with people like that. I used to work in finance as kind of the first part of my career journey. And I just found that it was not very honest and direct. And there was so much politics and people talking behind their backs and all about getting ahead. And I think it became so exhausting so quickly. And it was so not how I believe that companies get ahead and perform. And there were great things about my job too, but I just remember the FaceTime and, like you said, sending the last email, and it was so unsatisfying, and it made me pretty disloyal to the company and really unhappy. And so I think as I've started my own company, I've thought about how to create an environment where people do feel comfortable speaking up, obviously respectfully and appropriately, but in a way that they feel valued and that they don't feel like they're going to be, like you said, punished for what they say. So I think it's learning from my past experiences and really reflecting on why I wasn't happy and trying to bring that into the everyday. So for example, when I first started Bundle, I was, again, very used to FaceTime and sending the last email. And I would email employees all hours of the night, because I do work at weird hours sometimes because of having little kids and all that. So I'd be up in the middle of the night. And I started realizing that like they were actually responding to me like fairly quickly and like
Yes.
what was wrong with me? Like, why am I emailing someone at 10 p.m.? And so I noticed that and I saw it burning out people and no one was saying anything to me. And so what I started doing is I started schedule sending. So now I still do work at like some weird hours, like I in the middle of the night when I wake up and I can't sleep or late at night. But now I schedule send. So they're not going to get it in the middle of the night. They're going to get it the next morning. And people actually came to me and said that they started doing that with their direct reports because they found themselves copying me and also sending emails at like weird hours. And then people feel the need to respond. So I think it's again like we're taking that time to reflect on like, how am I contributing to that burnout? How am I contributing to people being nervous about not responding? And how can I correct it? And helping it kind of spill out to the rest of the organization. And no one called me out specifically on that, but I could just tell by like people's reactions and faces and how quickly they were responding that they were nervous. And so again, I think it's really reflecting on constantly reflecting and learning from your own mistakes. And then, later on, we've now had conversations. Oh, remember when you used to like email me? And I'm like, yeah, like you should have said something. So I think it's taking moments like that and saying next time, say something. And it makes people comfortable saying, okay, if I see her kind of going off track, I can say something and she'll recognize it and at least think about it, even if she doesn't agree with it. So I think it's almost like not being afraid to call yourself out on your own past mistakes and allowing people to feel comfortable, again, calling you out in the future. So that's just like one example that I always think of. And I was like, what was I doing? I was sending people emails so late at night. It wasn't even that important. So I think, again, it's just like learning as you go.
Yeah. But that's those cultural norms. And
Yeah.
you speak of, again, this intentionality around here's what I have experienced, here's what I don't want to continue.
Right.
And being the boss, you get to kind of set that framework, and now it's just a matter of being consistent with executing and making sure that individuals understand coming in, because many individuals who are leaving jobs will, they usually say you don't leave a job, you leave a boss. And so, but now it's not even like you leave a boss, or you're really leaving culture, because it's like, okay, enough. I've ran this race, or it's just not a good fit. You'll hear people say that more and more now in regards to conversations around culture. And I think, again, back to us having experienced a hard pause, a hard reset, to where many of us could not even get comfortable for months, because it's like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm stuck in, like, no, you need to face who you are, what's going on. But we've been so busy, but not necessarily productive. And so that's a whole nother call out, right?
I agree. I could not agree more. And I think also, with startups, you can't necessarily compete with some of the bigger companies in terms of pay and benefits, but you can compete on culture. And culture is important. And it's why people stay at jobs. And it's why you grow loyalty with people. It's why I've had a lot of people that have been here since the beginning and are not leaving. I don't ever see them leaving unless I kick them out, because again, like, you're competing on culture. And if you invest in your culture, like even when we had like 12 employees, we still had a culture committee, which I think is like a little rare because you only have 12 people. How do you
Are you kidding?
But I think it's little things like that, like showing that like we have something like that, like, oh, they actually care about like what's going on culturally, even though we're remote and all that. So I think, again, like I think culture is one of the things you can compete on, even if you're not, the companies that can pay the most. So I agree with you. I think people, like you say, people don't leave jobs, they leave managers, and people leave bad cultures. So I think culture is like one thing you can compete on. And if you put work into it, you can really have like an incredible culture that like lives on its own, and it is its own machine in a way.
Yeah, it is so much that we can talk about when we talk about culture. And I'm just applauding you for being so proactive, even with 12 people having that committee, because a lot of corporations are still trying to get past just diversity. And that diversity is black and white. We're so off track that now you're having all this in and out in this revolving door. people coming in, and it costs more when you have to rehire.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like culture, because you can recruit 500 people for any project, but if the culture does not cause them to feel a sense of belonging and, as you said, respect, and valued,
Mhm.
there's another one out the door.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like you said, the cost of replacing and onboarding and ramping up and all that, you bet it's just less costly to just invest in the culture a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. So, those who are joining us, we are having an amazing conversation with Kayla Le- Lebovits. Yes, I've
You
got
got
to
it.
practice it. The founder and the amazing being behind bundlebenefits.com. If you want to go and learn some information, we're going to talk more about Bundle, but also this is where we kind of switch over and we get some mentoring moments from Kayla in regards to how to lead successfully. And then I have a word. I have a word for her as we come back. I am so excited. Like, it's like we came off of this whole topic of culture. And with all of my guests, there is not often, always these days with this new season, there's a word that will come to me that resonates with the guest, but also their work and what I feel they are. And so my word for you for our time together is disruption.
Ooh, I like that word.
That's what I think of at doing my research with you, having experienced some of your work, having experienced you in person and coming, but you're a quiet storm with it though. You're real quiet, and it's like, whoa, what happened? Like everything is uprooted. Disruption is a noun, so a thing,
Mhm.
person, place, a thing, and so disturbance of problems which interrupt an event, activity, or process. To a radical change to an existing industry or market. Or three, a break or interruption in the normal course or continuation of some activity, process, or etc. And so you've come in with Bundle, and then also the people behind the people. And basically, you've disrupted what has been the norm. And I want to start with this whole concept that you are speaking to through the business, through the book, that leaders both need to be demanding and supportive. Oxymoron. But because it's the very thing that especially now, we're seeing more and more information that says leading with grace, compassion, vulnerability. These are the key things that leaders are going to need to lead for this next, especially with this next generation that's coming into the workplace, but also to keep those who were scheduled to retire, they're not retiring.
Yeah, so I think really with COVID, like the pendulum swung and all the power was in the employee hands versus before it was all in the employer hand. It was uneven. And now we're kind of coming back to like a middle ground where you have the employer and the employee that have more of a balance of power, which I think is a healthier way. I don't think either should have too much power. And I think that while people want to be led with compassion, I really believe that people want things to be demanded of them in the way that they want their employer or their manager or their leader to demand. They want to be held to higher standards. They want to say, I want to see you perform. I want you to like ace this project. I want you to get promoted. I want you to take on more responsibilities. They need that. They need those demands because that's what's going to help them excel and take their career to the next level, but they also need support at the same time. You can't just be demanding without the support because then you're this crazy boss who no one wants to work for because you have unrealistic demands. So I think there's, again, like you need that healthy balance of the demand and support, just like you need a healthy balance of employer and employee. And if you're too supportive, then you're almost like trying to be friends with your reports and your employees, and you're not their friend. You're a colleague, and you're their manager and their leader, and you need to be that for them. They have friends in their personal life. They don't necessarily need you to be their friend. So I think it's a combination of you need to hold them to high standards and help them reach those standards and reach those new levels in their career, but give them the support to get there. If you're giving them all these new responsibilities but no tools, no people to help them, you're not supporting them. You're just giving them unrealistic expectations and standards to reach. So I think there's this healthy balance, where you need to allow them to be accountable for their work, give them leadership opportunities, also let them know that you are there to help them get there. They're not on an island alone. So I think to lead well, you need to have a healthy balance of both. If you go too extreme in one direction, if you lead with too much compassion, if you again are too demanding, you're just gonna see turnover, and no one's gonna want to work for you or your company. I think again, there's this healthy balance where they know that you are pushing them, but pushing them realistically and giving them the tools they need to get there.
There is actual research that has been released this month that talks about employees who are challenged produce more work. They're higher achievers. And it is that we want those structure, but not the structure in the sense of that authoritative, here's what we need you to do, get it done, and and then I'll give you the next thing. No, because there is this also collaborative component to where there are individuals who are working as your employees who are contributing to outcomes, but there's also this whole concept of measurement and accountability. And accountability, I think, has been somewhat made into a dirty word, but it's really not, because it allows us to see that we're advancing, also where we may need to do a little better, but also how we're contributing, because here it is a chance to report back on the success, even also the failures, because you can't have success without the failure.
Of course, yes.
Right.
Definitely. And I think when people aren't challenged, they get bored.
Yes.
And they leave, or they just coast, and they're not really happy coasting. Like, most people want to excel and perform, whether it's for themselves or for someone else, but people want to be challenged. I mean, it's like you can only coast for so long, and then you're kind of ready for something different. So I think, again, like you said, people perform, but I would believe, I want to see that study, obviously, yes, but I would 100% believe it, right? Because most people, I think, will thrive when they're challenged, if they're given the support along with that challenge.
Okay. And that support you mentioned, which I'm glad I now have clarity. I'm like, oh, you want us to have an iron fist and then say, I'm here to support you. But no, I totally get it.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to start there, because I think a lot of times we're trying to play that dance as leaders, managers, directors, and when we have teams that we're leading. And even as I believe, even if you don't have a team that's reporting to you directly, it's still a way in which you can, even because we're all collaborating. There's nothing that gets done without collaboration and working across teams. So this same principle can still be something that is leaned into as we move forward.
I agree. You don't have to be like in a leadership position. You don't have to have direct reports to be a leader. You can lead in projects you do, in presentations you do. There are tons of ways to lead yourself, to lead people, to lead projects. So I agree with that as well.
You also say the urgency and need for companies, businesses, educational institutions to shift to a human-centric approach for their people, that this is a growing need. Explain that to us.
I think that too much people view employees as a number and not as like a person. Like you said earlier, like, people want to bring their whole selves to work. The personal and professional is so blended now that I feel that people want to feel valued. They want to feel like they are, if they were to leave their company, it would make a difference. And I think so often companies are just treating them again like a number, like on a little spreadsheet, when every single decision they make at a company affects people. And if they started thinking of them as like people with feelings, with families, like when you let go of someone, you're not just letting go of someone, you're letting go of their ability to provide for themselves, for their families, for many things. And I think people just too often don't realize that if we're just more human towards each other and just treat people like people, it goes such a long way. Even again, if it's as terrible as having to let someone go, there's a human way to do it and there's like a non-human way to do it. And I think you're seeing that a lot in the media. And even I think as just as you think about developing employees professionally within a job, like there's a way to just go about it where you involve the person in the conversation and you ask them what they're looking for in their career instead of just dictating, this is what I want you to do, this is what you're doing. I think it's this like healthy marriage and balance between the employer and the employee. And I think too often the employer just views the employee as someone they can just boss around and not worry about the repercussions. But now people have options. They can go somewhere where they're treated better, where the culture is better. So I think taking this approach where you realize that employees are people, they have families, they have lives outside of work, and recognizing that, I think goes such a long way for people and is probably not happening at most companies right now, unfortunately. But I think that the pandemic helped at least open up the conversation where I actually like am choosing to work here and I want to be treated as more than just, again, like a name in a spreadsheet. Like I am a person who is coming to work every day, bringing my whole self, pouring my heart and soul into my work, and I deserve to be treated like a human in return. And I think we're slowly starting to see it happen in certain industries and with certain leaders, but I think we still have a long way to go.
I do not want to end our time just to talk about the people behind the people and this amazing work that you and the Bundle team did. Very fortunate, very blessed by your leadership to be able to contribute to this work. And then not only to this work, but to accept the invitation. First of all, thank you to come to New York.
Yes.
I did not know the treat I was in for. And we did a panel there and I'm we all connected via LinkedIn. And just where did this come from and why?
I just felt like so I didn't, like most people probably, the pandemic was not going to last forever, but I think that there were so many changes happening during the pandemic that were going to last long after it. I still am belief in that thesis. Yeah. And I felt like the people behind the people, which is, the heroes of the HR world, they're the ones that were dealing with all these changes and are therefore going to be responsible for all the changes that are happening post-pandemic. So it really was like a passion project for me that turned into something more. I love talking to the HR and people and benefit leaders that are behind every company because they're the pulse of every company. One of the interviewees even said, if the CHRO isn't being considered to be the future CEO of a company, like that strategy is not the right one. And I agree with it. Like HR is so much more than it used to be. It's not, I think some people still think of HR as these really traditional, administrative roles. It's so not like that. There are so many elements. It's so dynamic. It's forever changing. And you have the smartest people now in these roles that are at the forefront of all these changes. So I found it fascinating that no matter what industry people are in, no matter what background they're in, every single person I interviewed was focused on how to accelerate positive changes within their company and their field. And it was just incredible. It was hours and hours and hours of interviewing and writing and all that, but it was so worth it because every single time I interviewed someone, I learned something new for my own company. And I think there's just so many lessons to take away that are pretty timeless. They're not pandemic bound. They're not like about a moment in time. Like all the lessons in here from these leaders can be used in any organization at any point. And I think the fact that it's so timeless is amazing. So yeah, I think I'm so proud of it. Everyone says, is there going to be a part two? And I'm like, no way. But I don't want to say no way because honestly, I think that I could probably do hundreds more of these interviews and they would all be different and give new takeaways and lessons.
I agree.
I need to have time in my life again, but if I do, I would definitely do a part two because again, it's timeless. These you can pick up this book and learn and take something useful for your own life and company and everything.
Yeah, and it's so easy to read, but
Oh
it's
yeah.
almost it's somewhat conversationalist.
Yeah.
Um conversational to where it's like you're there like
Yeah.
with at the interview somewhat as you're reading, but then it makes you lean back and say, huh, that's a different point of view or perspective to consider, because there are some set questions
Right.
that were asked of each of the individuals, but then there's also you can tell where you may have been enlightened by something else and did a pivot,
Yeah.
shifted with the questions, which
Yeah.
were so amazing. And then the whole idea of the word, and the words that you had to frame out the conversation for each individual was just absolutely amazing.
Yeah. It
Now,
was
looking back though, what would you have done different? Because you're running the business. This is pretty much kind of intel for you as you move forward, but also for others,
mhm.
whether startup, whether corporate, a global footprint. This is a great read. Um, but what would you have done different
With the book.
with the book and with Bundle?
Oh man. With the book, I think I would have maybe like just interviewed more and more people. I think it was a time thing and we wanted to get it out, but I just think like this book could be pages and pages long and it would still be conversational and still be interesting. And I think just getting more people in there, more viewpoints and more diversity of viewpoints, that probably is the one thing I would have done differently. And I think it was just bound by my own time and bandwidth. But I think again, this could be like triple, quadruple the size and would still be as interesting and engaging. And then with Bundle, what I would do differently, I know you use the word to describe me as like disruptor and disruption, but I think we could always be moving faster. I always tell my team, like, we need to move fast. Like what we're doing right now is we are so at like the forefront of all these changes going on. We should have moved faster at this point and that point, and we need to keep moving faster. So I think that would be my one looking back, if I could do it differently, would just be moving faster. And I think my team would laugh hearing this because they're like, how much faster can we move?
I
But
know when you just told us we need to have boundaries and all this different stuff, and now you said that's your question.
I
Okay.
think so. You know why? I think like moving faster doesn't mean like necessarily like working more. I think it's just working smarter. So I think there were times where like certain things weren't working and we just like kept trying and we were like refused to let it fail. But I think we could have like moved on a little quicker and just realized like it's okay, not every test and pilot's going to work out. So I think it's more about maybe working smarter than working harder.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Totally understand that. And the fact that many of these things are new. And
Yes.
so you're setting new norms. You
Exactly.
have, this psychological safe culture.
Yeah.
And for some, they're learning that because I'm telling you, not everybody believes that it's real until things begin to happen. So you have all this going on. And I always say you're going to take a risk either way.
Yeah.
Whether you make a decision now, you make it later, you go left
Yeah.
instead of right, you go with purple instead of orange. It's always going to be some level of risk. But
Sure.
I hear you. That's a mentoring moment right there to where know when to hold them, when to fold them, know when to
Exactly.
move forward,
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think also like another learning for me has been to be a little bit vulnerable as a leader. I think I've gotten better at it. We're like telling team members like I need help or this isn't working or what would you do? And I think sometimes people view like vulnerability as like weak in a leader, but I think when you're vulnerable and you ask people for help, they actually respect you more and want to help you more and want to perform better. So I think I've gotten better at that over time, but I think looking back, there were probably moments where I could have been a little bit more vulnerable and asking for help, and I would have been able to move faster as a result. So I think that I think, again, it's okay to be vulnerable as a leader. I think people will respect you and want to help you more and support you and help you solve problems. So I think looking back, that's just another thing that comes to mind, that I could have moved faster if I had been a little more vulnerable and asked people for help instead of trying to do everything myself.
And as you begin to position yourself to ask for help the days ahead, what is it? What do you see for Bundle as you move forward? Because you're elevating employees, you're providing this virtual solutions to development, retention, team dynamics, team engagement, all those things we need, especially now that we've got remote, we've got in person, on ground, we've got hybrid. That's not changing.
No, I don't think so. I think for us as we grow Bundle, we're really focused on just being this personalized option that people can rely on at companies. I think companies have really, when they look at how to support employees, whether it's through benefits or professional development solutions, they're very much they've always tried to do like a one size fits all model, like whether it's more cost efficient or just easier or quicker. But I think we're really focused on honing in on, you need like curated choice for employees and you need personalized options. That's how you're going to get them to develop. That's how you're going to get them to be well. That's how you're going to get them to be engaged and stay at your company. So I think as we grow, we're really focused on, you need you need curated choice, not too much choice for employees to allow them to develop professionally and personally. And then you need to have it personalized, because no one just wants to be, put into a box with everyone else. Everyone has different things they want to work on, whether it's communication or leadership or how to be less stressed or how to work better in teams. And I think that as employers are thinking of ways to support their employees, they need to think a little bit more personalized and less like cookie cutter approaches.
Right. And I know you are very intentional and vocal
Mm-hmm.
about your thoughts regarding these antiquated
Yes.
benefit offerings. And like I'm in the middle, I'm Gen X. And so, we had, some of us were, in that group where we followed our parents. We get a job, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna be here for my 30. Give me my rocking chair, my lamp.
Yeah.
But now, like, then there's the other side to where it's like, no, I want to try some things. I want to
Right.
scale down and not be the VP, but let me be the director so I can leave and do my hard work, the
Right.
stuff that I love to do. So you have this balance with this new idea of balance, which I think some of us are really starting to say, I don't have to pursue the top level. I can still have some influence and impact right here in the middle. It's not that I'm just trying to coast, but it allows me to disconnect to do this other work. But while I'm doing that, I need to be mindful that some of my benefits, as I'm again in this unique space of
Right.
middle agedness, the needs do change.
Yeah.
And so for me, I would rather have a 4-day work week. So I plug in a day, from here,
Yeah.
a day that causes me to have that flexibility, and not apologize for needing to use that flexibility. But then you have also those who are like this well-being that's not going away. So that
Right.
needs to be an offering, and well-being of all sorts. So there's just all these different things that corporations, whether small or large, can think smarter as they approach them. We have this last moments with you. And what would you tell, considering all that I've just said, what would you tell even a startup?
Yeah.
Um, a lesson in the nick of time that you could share with them, or how could they be disruptive?
I think you need to listen to your employees. I think too often people at the top are doing what they think is best, what they've learned from their past experiences. But I think you need to listen to the people around you and underneath you, because diversity of experiences and opinions will help you move forward and innovate and grow as a company and as a culture. I think too often people, again, are afraid to ask for help or they're afraid they're being viewed as vulnerable. But I think if you listen to your employees around you, listen to their unique needs, you listen to their unique opinions, you can actually really build a company that is psychologically safe and allows people to bring not only their whole selves to work, but their best selves. So like you just said, maybe the 4-day work week for you is something that would really work for you. And you'll actually be more productive in those 4 days than you would be in 5 days. So I think that it's really about listening to employees. And listen, you're not going to make everyone happy and you're not going to make decisions that everyone thinks are the best decisions. But I think at least showing you're listening, showing you're actively listening can go a long way for your employees, your team, which will then translate to your business, because at the end of the day, the business needs to exist for the employees to exist. So I think that would be my parting advice, is to listen to those around you, ask for help with those around you. And I think you'll get a diversity of brain power and opinion that will help lead your business in the right direction, and therefore lead your current and future employees in the right direction.
So I want to thank you so much, Kayla, from the
Yes,
NYC. Those of you who have tuned in, make sure you go and check them out at bundlebenefits.com. We will post all that information and also get you prepared to also purchase that book. You do not want to forget The People Behind the People.
On Amazon, no excuses.
Yes, no excuses. You can get it delivered right to the house. Exactly. Thank you so much. Yes, go and check her out. I cannot wait. Next time I am in the NYC, I will make sure that I look you up and we can hang out for a little bit.
Always down to hang out. It was great being here. And yeah.
I'll make sure I'm within the boundaries. How about that?
Sounds good.
Thank you so much to you, Kayla. I want to also thank each and every one of you for tuning in. Absolutely. What did I tell you? There was going to be some amazing content shared. I myself have tools that I need to go ahead and put into place, especially this whole concept of support, professionally and personally, and then working smarter in ways that doesn't mean faster. So with all of that, we're going to tune out for this segment, but then anticipate your arrival for the next time we're together. Don't forget, you already possess everything you need to be successful, but it's living out success as you define it. Just remember to continue to show up and to share out. Go and be great.